My name is Father Scott Harris. I'm a Maryknoller. And Jim and I were in the seminary from high school. He joined in freshman year, and I came in my third year, junior. So that makes it since 1963. I know him. He was always prayerful. Even then, I used to say, Jim, I don't think they're going to ordain me, but you got to shoe it. He said, yes, well, you are a little loud, you know. I said, yeah, well, you know, what are you going to do? My father was non-Catholic. It don't work very good, you know. I came from a mixed marriage family, so I could get away with a lot. Anyway, Jim and I went through all of that, high school and college, and those were transition years. You know, Vatican II has just started. When we joined, we had the Magnum Silentium. You were quiet from supper on until they rang the bell after breakfast the next morning. Well, he knew how this all was, and I didn't. So the second day I was there, I said, hey, how you doing? And he said, we're supposed to be quiet until they ring the bell. And I said, what bell? He said, the one they ring down in the refectory. I said, they ring a bell for that too? He said, yes. So anyway, he went through college. We went through college, and then we have overseas training in Maryknoll. Before you take oath or so on, after theology, you go overseas for a few years, and then come back and finish. Jim and I have been in contact all those years. About, you know, it was so marvelous because you go back that long with someone, you can begin a conversation and they know exactly where you were starting from. No need to explain a thing. I think if you're lucky, you get 2 or 3 people like that in a lifetime. And when you lose them, there's a hole in your soul, and it doesn't get filled until you see them again. Jim in Africa, he was always a striver. I mean, Jim's great gift was he was not the most brilliant in the room, but he was always the most hardworking. And he was extraordinarily organized in whatever he did or studied. I think if you met his mother, you'd know why. She was a very, very organized lady, and she expected a very, very organized house. And so this is something that, you know, is genetic, I think. And when he finally got overseas to Africa as a priest, Bishop mentioned in Dolaleji, that's a parish. I was in Africa too, but not at the same time he was. I was at Bugando Hospital because I became a doctor and I was a surgeon there. But this parish is at the end of the line. And it had 15 outstations, and there were only 2 priests, so you went all over around, and you didn't have mass every weekend. It was a very tough place that was short on water and sort of short on food. It was a most difficult mission, but had very nice people. And when you mention about confession, I don't think Jim understood what confession was until he was there himself. Because in Africa, what people do when they come to confession is you're seated at a seat and they come and they literally flop in your lap. And they talk to you about everything. And you sort of pat them and then you say, If your language is as good as he was, he could actually help them. My language wasn't all that high. I could say, yeah, you know, yes, God wills, yes. But his language was superb. So good that when he was in that mission, he wrote the first go-round of RCIA for East Africa. Now this is a foreigner doing it in Swahili. Totally unheard of. I mean, that's the Nobel Peace Prize thing. And they still use it, by the way, with some modifications. So Jim allowed the people he was with to teach him. And not only teach him, but love him. And they did. They sure did. He was kind. Nothing was ever, I don't think he ever, I know of, ever saying no to anyone unless he felt that saying yes to them would be hurtful to them in some way or they weren't ready. He used to say, if you don't think you have the energy for it, pause and ask God for more energy. And as you know, here at St. Michael's, well, he had tons of energy, always had tons of energy. His parish in Africa was a tough one because the nomads would come through the parish. They go up at the beginning and come back. A huge, maybe 400 people, and they would migrate north. They were Maasai-related folks, and they'd come through his place. And they wanted everything. They wanted medical services. They wanted to get baptized, married, buried. Somehow they managed to even time that the births of their kids would be when they were visiting his parish. And you couldn't keep up with it. I mean, they were just too poor, too needy, and so on. And at that time, but what would happen is these 15 villages that he would serve, along with the parish, they would come to him and say, we know you can't take care of them, but you take care of us. Now we will take care of them with you. And they brought the food, and they got a couple of doctors to come, and it was all the rest of it. And Jim could manage it all and direct it and let it go without his stamp. You see, that's important. Jim Lee never had to have his stamp of this is Jim Lee's thing in his whole life. He could let it be. He could talk about it. He would assess and help, but he didn't need to be in control. He liked control, but at the end, he could let go of it. You know? I mean, if he thought something needed to be changed, hang on. He was as determined as his mother. I think that Jim learned a lot in Africa, and he gave a great, great, great deal. He was one of the most successful people we had in Tanzania, and the parish still talks about him. And then when he came back and was in formation for a bit, and he came here to this diocese, Phil Wallace was here at the time, Maryknoll, and he joined him for a while at St. Louis, I think, and then he was in Bellingham, and I visited him there. But his time here, I will tell you, I want to thank you all because you pulled the best out of Jim Lee. This place, this community. He had tons going for him before, but your kindness, your love, your smarts, your all the things that make St. Michael's, you pulled that out of him so that he even grew to a better, bigger, better Jim Lee. And that's something that I don't think would have happened in Maryknoll, frankly. I think he was in Maryknoll for as long as he needed to be to learn what he had to learn. And then God in his plan moved him here to this diocese where he flourished and loved, and especially then to this parish. So I don't think it's just a matter of us talking about how marvelous Jim was. I think we also have to say how marvelous you were to allow him to become fully who he was. That's your gift. So as you think about his passing, it's sad, but let's face it, it's sad mostly for us. Who do you know is more prepared? If he isn't a first-class member of the communion of saints, it ain't worth it. So he is, and he loved you all, this parish, he loved me, he loved lots of people, but Jim's love will be through time and eternity. You know, time kisses eternity. They don't separate. And he will be with you. He will, if I were you, I've done it since he passed. I'd pray and ask his intercession, because I am sure he's in a seat where he can do us all a great lot of good. So as much as he loved you and served you and loved this place, I know that you loved him, and I want to thank you and recognize not only did you love him and work with him, but you pulled the best out of him. And that is to your credit now and always. Now there's another thing that I want to mention to you that maybe you don't know, or maybe you do, but Jim and I would talk, well, frequently or infrequently, depending on the time. And I used to say, you know, Jim, this is really a toughie, or this is bugging me, or whatever. I'd say, so what do you think? And he said simply, try fasting. I said, Jim, look at me, try fasting, give me a break. No, he said, I'm serious. If there's someone you can't take, or is a situation that needs to change, or a decision that you know is key and you can't quite make it, fast. And I want to tell you, he fasted a lot. He was not only always thin because he was always thin. He was thin because he fasted, because he believed it sharpened his spiritual acuity and allowed him to do and move forward with what he had to do. The second thing I already mentioned is that if you don't think you have the energy, ask God for more. You know, when all priests are ordained, there's part of the ordination ceremony that says, may the good work that God has begun in you be brought to completion. We can say now, may the good work that God has given and worked and been with Jim for all these years is now reaching the fullest completion in eternity. God bless you all.